but nice to see you all. Good morning. Thanks for coming to the Economic Forecast Luncheon last week.
Got it. Okay, well, I want to first start off by saying thank you to the Chamber for the job that you guys are doing. I honestly, it's an honor to just speak here. So this is a topic that I've been working with and around for many years. So I kind of feel humbled to speak on what it is that I do. But then again, that's the Chamber. So appreciate you guys. Yeah, definitely. Kind of getting started, I'll just give you a very brief commercial of myself. I've been an insurance producer at Bankers Life and Casualty for about 20 years now. Not new to the business, so if there's people out there with questions, don't at all be afraid to reach out. Love to help and answer questions for folks. Kind of jumping right into this Long-Term Cares Act is this. I kind of wanted to just start off by making sure everyone realizes this is not a new problem. It's not a new topic. It's just took a new twist recently. You know, been a lot of, it's been a kind of a whirlwind in the insurance business in the last 6 months, at least for Bankers Life and a couple of other companies out there. This is a growing problem. As we've seen maybe loved ones or go through this, we have a kind of an aging population. And so that said, it's we're kind of stuck at a point where something had to be done. A lot of confusion and frustration as this bill has kind of come to fruition. And I just want to remind everybody that I respect the kind of the public awareness, and what this bill has accomplished is now everyone is talking about some solutions, whereas a year or two ago, we all just had our Superman capes on and hoped nothing would ever happen to us. So, and again, I hope nothing ever does. But that said, it's becoming one of the greatest insurance dilemmas in the country right now, as too many people are getting sick and needing care. Not enough people have any insurance to pay for this. And the biggest challenge is, if anyone's been around the care industry, I know my wife administers a home care agency. And really what we're seeing is the cost of home care has gone up to over $35 an hour. Long-term care, if we need it, is about $10,000 a month. So another thing is, I want to be really clear on this, is it's really greater than a 70% problem that's facing us, and really just focused on Washington State. We saw this as a challenge during COVID and not having access even to our loved ones. And so I just really implore everybody that is affected by this, take a look at the bill, learn it, look to answer some questions on it if we can. That said, I'll kind of get into some of the specifics. Do we have the flyer to put up, or there, Tara? Okay, kind of jumping right in. A lot of people, like I said, they kind of criticized the state for forcing this bill onto all W-2 employees. So I'll kind of start there. This bill is going to kick in, meaning that they're going to start withdrawing taxes out of all W-2 employees' paychecks beginning January of 2022. That said, for those whom already have long-term care insurance or are already retired, this bill does not affect them. Also, I do believe, it's my understanding that all 1099 employees, so self-ran business owners, they will not be affected either, unless, of course, they W-2 themselves. So that said, it's over 4 million people in Washington State. They're going to begin contributing to this CARES Act. And really to the left there, it kind of lays out why this is a growing challenge. It says about 7 out of 10, it's more like 7.5 out of 10 people are going to end up needing help at some point, and the cost is up over $10,000 a month. So I always get nervous throwing that out there, even though it's right on the page, because I keep thinking Deanna saying, "Thanks for scaring us, Mike." I'm not trying to, but these are real numbers, and it's becoming a problem for the state. So notice the pie chart there. I think it's important to realize that the challenge in this state is the cost to Medicaid is going to soon double if something isn't done. So there is a need for some attention on this topic. Up top, it kind of lays out one of the biggest challenges, that if long-term care, if runs for anywhere from $30,000 to $130,000 a year to provide care for folks, and if the average income in Washington State is $56,000, we've got a challenge. I also want to direct folks' attention to anyone who's nearing or already on Medicare. Is page 52 of their new Medicare book. Very clearly lays out that Medicare is not going to address any of these expenses. They're going to take care of short-term care or short-term rehabilitation, but they do not cover any extended or long-term care costs. So kind of looking in the mirror and at this bill, if we could scroll down just a little on that form. Here's what the trust costs. Right now, for folks who do not have a policy who will be automatically enrolled in the January 1st, 2022 tax, I like how this form kind of gives some estimates. So I don't know, some may have seen this, some may not, but it's a 58 cents per $100 worth of wages. So they figure an average $52,000 a year income earner. This tax it's not a huge tax. It's only about $302 a year. Where we see this becoming exceedingly problematic is for folks who maybe they're making 60, 70, 80 or over 100,000 a year, and they're only going to be working for a few more years, because the real challenge with this tax that I see, or we're talking about in the industry, really is just that if you're going to work for the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to pay into this tax, and then you have a minimum period of which to pay into it, or you don't have access to the funds. One of the other challenges with this is really just that once we've funded into this CARES fund, this doesn't move states. And I have a lot of my clients that are baby boomers that maybe they want to work in Washington, retire in Arizona, and this fund act, it's not commutable. It does not move to different states. So there's just a couple of things to be aware of for folks who are kind of looking at this as a potential challenge and wanting to do some planning on the topic. Down on the lower column under it talks about the benefits. So I want to make sure we're clear on when we're paying this tax as a W-2 employee, what do we get for it? Well, this new act is really going to give us about $36,500 for those who have paid into the tax. And there is talk about that 0.58% of wages having a potential rate increase already. So that's something to kind of keep on the watch. We'll see how this bill does move. But the real challenge, obviously, is we're going to pay into a tax. As I'm going to reiterate something, I'm glad that the state is doing something. We just want to make sure that this fits in with pre and post retirees plan, because I don't know if anyone has looked into standalone long-term care insurance, but when you do a direct comparison of standalone long-term care that you own yourself versus the state plan, it's one of the biggest things is when you go to claim on a policy, you typically will need help living, which means you're needing help with 2 out of 5 ADLs. Eating, bathing, dressing, incontinence, and moving from bed to a chair. With the state program, the gatekeepers to claim on it is you need to have 3 out of 6 ADLs met. So it is a little bit more of a challenge to extract that money out of the policy through the state than it would be in many cases for private pay long-term care insurance. Now, that said, I want to be really clear on something. The reason this is, obviously I touched on it, this is a problem is because it's a greater than a 70% problem. So insurance companies, while I'm very happy to be speaking and addressing everybody today, insurance companies are terrified of this problem still too. Now, we've been selling long-term care for years. I've been here for 20 years and been selling long-term care the whole time. But make no mistake, they are afraid of this problem. Most companies, if folks have been doing some checking around, and we've been overwhelmed with calls on this topic, we stopped offering long-term care insurance to anyone under the age of 50. And a big chunk of that is because of the way that we read the bill as a private insurance company. And as it stands, to my knowledge, there is no reoccurring proof of coverage. And so the companies are afraid that people will buy a policy, keep it for a year to avoid the tax, and then opt out. And so that's one of the reasons we stopped offering long-term care to anyone 50 years or younger. We feel like we have a pretty good proof of loss on anybody's 50 years or older, because we've been working with that demographic for quite some time. So in essence, what I've been telling folks is a couple of things. Make no mistake, we are living longer. That's one of the problems with this and why long-term care is becoming a growing need. More people are needing care than ever before because of a bill passed in the 80s, kind of changing the way Medicare pays its claims. So it's putting people in a hospital quicker and sicker than ever before, but we don't stay there to rehab. We either go to rehabilitation or come home. And so making sure that we've got resources either way to cover that is becoming more and more critical to the retirement plan. And then the other thing is families are in transition. I don't know if anyone else out there can relate to that, but this world is becoming smaller and smaller. We see families spread out across the country. And we're not the Waltons anymore, where everybody's living in one home taking care of several generations. So really, I can't reiterate that enough. It's becoming greater than a 70% problem. And so anybody from our firm's standpoint, anybody that is 50 years or older and in relatively good health with assets to guard, I implore you, please reach out and with your local financial advisor or myself or one of us to help answer some questions with how to solve this problem. I do say this is a bill that the state is going to enroll everyone in the bill, all W-2 employees. We are only taking the healthier folks. And so if your health is good, might be a good idea to do some checking around. Obviously, when you own your own policy, you've got a little bit more control over cost, expenses, and really benefits. A standalone long-term care policy, by comparison, is unlike this bill, where you have to wait years to pay into that fund and let it accrue. A standalone long-term care policy, the idea is you get approved, you have your own policy, it kicks in immediately, and you don't have to wait 10 years before this fund is accrued and at the ready to claim on. Those are a couple of quick cliff notes on the bill and comparing the bill to some standalone long-term care insurance. I would say that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of what I have to discuss today. I'd like to maybe open it up to anybody that has some questions that I can answer for folks, because I know if you're like me, when I first started this topic, it kind of started going in one ear and out the other because it's nothing that we want to talk about at all. I'd much rather be talking about my summer plans and vacation plans, but this is something that's kind of creeped up on us and is worth addressing. And so thank you, Chambers, for letting me speak on it. Do we have any questions that initially I can answer for folks?
I was curious, the 36.5K, what will that actually cover? That sounds like 8 days of coverage or something.
Yeah, and that you're actually onto something there. The average cost and actually long-term care insurance is built with 3 metrics. So keep that in mind, as this will answer that question. It's how much money per day will this plan pay out? Well, the state built this plan at $100 a day payout. Well, today the cost of care is, I want to be careful here, because if you're receiving home care, it's a little different than assisted living, a little different than nursing home. But that said, a nursing home, it's not uncommon for them to be $10,000 a month at this time. There are cheaper ones, there are more expensive ones, but you roughly look at that cost around $300 a day. If this bill is going to cover about $100 a day, someone's got to make up the difference if you're needing care and you're only using the bill. Mm-hmm. So this bill was never designed to be a cure-all. I have never spoken to anyone at our government about this, but I can venture a guess they're just looking to provide something that can offset the cost of so many people relying on Medicaid. Mm-hmm. So when we build a long-term care policy, I usually recommend looking at something around $200 to $300 a day. Case in point, if you've got $1 million in your investment account sitting there, maybe you don't need to have a $300 a day plan because you could afford to offset some of that cost. Most would then get like $150 a day plan, so that they could pay some, we could pay some, but you're keeping premiums low. Mm-hmm. That would be one strategy. But that said, I always look at how much per day, how long will it pay, and what's the deductible, okay? That's one thing I knew, and I left my brain. I don't want to misspeak on it, but I believe that and if there's anyone out there that knows, please feel free to correct me, but I believe the bill has a 30-day elimination period built in. I forgot to look at that before we started the meeting, but that really is kind of the thing, is with a standalone long-term care policy, you could usually get one that has a 0 or a 15-day deductible to where it can kick in pretty quick and use it a little more freely. So that state program, it's something, but really you got $100 a day maximum for a total of about a year. So if you went a month in rehabilitation and the bill was $250 a day, at least you can rely, and you'd paid into this bill, at least you can rely on a third, almost a third of that bill being covered by this CARES Act. But and I actually kind of believe in not over-insuring people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes. Good question.
Ryan, go ahead.
Thanks, Michael, for the presentation. And I think at the beginning, you said that this bill has got a lot of people talking about long-term care, and it's kind of front and center for focus, which I think is part of its intent. And I think it's a good thing. And I believe we're the only state that has this long-term care.
That's correct.
Requirement. Could you give us any kind of an idea? So you had I think a $52,000 income, and then here's how much you'd be paying in, $25 or so a month, based on the current rate. Do you have any round numbers for an equal amount of coverage, or the other $150 or $250 a day long-term care insurance, what that might cost a person per month?
Yeah, I've been really focusing on about how much insurance protection people can buy on their own for about $100 a month. Now, anyone in there, like, younger 50s, 50 to 52, of course, they can get so much more. Somebody in their 70s, well, $100 a month might only buy them another $36,000 worth of coverage. Long-term care insurance is not cheap because we're terrified of it. So they're saying, hey, if we're going to insure people, we need to cover our losses. So yeah, long-term care, standalone long-term care insurance, I typically kind of focus on, hey, what can we get for about $100 a month? Someone in their 55 years old, they can usually get for $100 a month, you can get about a $70,000 to $80,000 benefit, in addition to this state thing. And the two together compare together nicely, have a little bit more coverage. Some are choosing to avoid the tax. Man, I don't know. I kind of feel like you're not paying a ton of money. If we're going to stay in business, I'm going to be a W-2 employee for 10 more years. I don't necessarily mind paying that tax, but I also want to do a little something on my own. Others right now are saying, hey, let me avoid the tax altogether. Well, that's fine. My challenge is try to look holistically at the retirement plan. For folks with 20,000 or less in assets, buying long-term care insurance is not going to solve this, because now they've taken on a liability every month when they don't have enough income to justify buying long-term care insurance. That said, the polar opposite of that is folks with a couple million or more, well, they could technically afford to self-insure, but it's 90% of the rest of the population I want to address. They're somewhere in the middle. They got too many assets to pay to go on to Medicaid, and not enough assets to pay that big bill on their own. And that's really who we're targeting, is that kind of middle section that we can do some good planning on. Does that help?
Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, real quick. Do you offer any plans that have like a huge high deductible, like a $300,000 deductible or something, for someone who wanted to protect, the upper portion of their assets, but had some savings? Thanks.
It's actually, I haven't had that question in some time, Cindy. So thank you for asking. And yes, now I want to clarify two different types of products as it pertains to bankers. The relatively smaller long-term care policies, meaning if you're between 50 and 79 looking for under $100,000 worth of long-term care, and that kind of is the masses, by the way. We have a program that if you answer no to 13 health questions, then we can issue it pretty quick. But that said, yes, if we're going to do some planning on those types of policies, we have some that have either a 6-month, 90-day, or 180-day deductible. And I think we do have one program has a 365-day deductible, meaning from the day you go to claim on it, yes, we'll let you use your assets for that first 30, 90, 180, or up to 365 days. And then after that, we will start paying the full bill. I tend to be a little bit of a fan for those types of programs, because they're really designed to pair nicely with your upper echelon asset clients.
Great. Senator Gildon. Thank you, Cindy.
Hey, good morning. Thanks. And Michael, appreciate your words today. I'm curious, does the bill, and I know the answer to it, but does the bill address inflation? And would it be reasonable to expect that these rates would need to be adjusted over time?
Does not address inflation, and they will have, the insurance guy in me kicks in. They will have some rate increases over time. They're already discussed raising it to 60.62% income adjustment, but they first want to get that bill up and off the ground and going. But at this time, it does not have any allowance for inflation. But I do think that the bill has some buy-up options, some extra buy-up options on it. I typically tend to be a little bit of a discourager when it comes to purchasing inflation protection on long-term care, only because of the net expense of those riders. But that's more personal preference than anything. Does that help?
Great. Well, thank you. Eloquent presentation. You did a great job covering a lot. Clearly, the Washington plan has some shortcomings, but we have options and opportunities. Again, August 26th, we will have an open house at the chamber. So just a great opportunity. Michael will have some of his team at the chamber all day, 10:30 to 4. And so if you want to sit and kind of go through different plans and different options, brainstorm with them, I just think this company is a great opportunity to do that. So I hope you decide to take advantage of that opportunity. Thank you so much, Michael. Anything else from the group?
No, I appreciate very much, as I've been a new member for only a few months now. And I just need to say, as I do every day, it's contagious to work with you guys. And I really appreciate everybody that's part of this chamber and what they're doing. So thanks for all you do, and happy to help however we can.
Fantastic. Appreciate the words.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on then Michael, do you want to maybe in the chat share your contact information too, so that if someone can't take advantage of the open house, they can reach out to you directly?
Sounds good. I'll send that now.
Perfect. All right. Well, we have a second guest speaker today that reached out to me recently about another hot topic, our broadband and its future. So Dayna Lurie, thank you for being here. I'll let you just go ahead and jump in and talk to us about some of your concerns in your world.
Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you all so much for having me this morning. So my name is Dayna Lurie. I am a consultant here in Washington State. I used to be the King County Outreach Director for Senator Maria Cantwell here stateside, and now I am working on a project with a group called America's Broadband Future. I'm going to put our link in the chat so folks can take a look. And we are working, as you know, there is this major infrastructure bill happening in Washington, D.C. right now. And there have been many communities in rural parts of the country, and many of you know in rural parts of Washington State, that have been struggling to get online with broadband connection for decades. This is going to be truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to correct that and get broadband for every community in the United States into a comprehensive bill. And this is just really a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I mean, if we let this pass, it could be another 20 years before this comprehensive broadband in a lot of these communities. And as we know, through COVID last year, during all the shutdowns, that the internet was the way to connect to everything. It was the way people were going to work. It was the way businesses were operating. It was the way children were going to school. And so many communities, I mean, you know, children were having to be driven to parking lots of fast food restaurants to get online to attend school. And that's just, the inequity in that in so many communities was devastating. And we have a true opportunity now with our leaders in Congress to correct that. And so basically what we're doing is I'm reaching out to different business communities throughout the state to reach out to Senator Cantwell. She is currently chair of the Commerce Committee, and she's always been a huge broadband proponent. And this is really the time to be hearing from her constituents about the importance of this kind of legislation. And, you know, while we know she's good on this issue, it never really hurts for folks to reach out to her. So my proposal to Tara was, I'm wondering if the chamber would be willing to send her a letter. And so I'm absolutely happy to answer any questions folks may have, or if folks want to send letters on their own as a constituent, I'm happy to work with you there as well. Tara, I'll pass it back over to you. If folks have questions, I'm happy to either do that here or happy to do it in the chat as well. Cute dog, by the way.
Well, you've definitely got Gretel's interest.
Yay, dogs love broadband.
Dogs love broadband. Yeah, certainly feel free. My screen keeps freezing, so I can't tell if anyone's raising their hand, but go right ahead and jump in if you have any questions for Dayna. Awesome. No questions, and definitely some information there to follow up on. So thank you, Dayna, for being here this morning.
Yeah, I'll also put my information in the chat. Again, if folks, we would love for the chamber to send a letter, but if folks also want to send out their individual emails, you can connect with me offline, and I'm happy to put you in touch with her office.
Terrific. Will do. All right. Well, let's go ahead and circulate around to our different municipalities. Let's start with Ryan Windish and Deputy Mayor Hayden out in Sumner.
Thank you, Tara. I don't have a whole lot to report this morning. I do want to say that the council last night passed a resolution to enter into the South Sound Affordable Housing Partnership. So that's the regional partnership that's hopefully going to be formed up here that will be pursuing affordable housing options and policy, and Sumner will be a part of that. So excited for that. We also have a number of just events going on in town. So I would pass that over to Lana Hoover, our community relations specialist, if she could give us a little update on that.
Hi there, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. I'm at my desk in my cubicle, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult. We have an exciting weekend ahead. On Saturday night, the 7th, we will have our first Nights on Ryan outdoor night market. So we're excited for that. And then on Sunday, we're going to have our Classy Chassis show. That starts at 10 a.m. So that's our car show. So we're very excited about that. And then we'll have another Nights on Ryan on the 14th. And then we will have, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my calendar here. And then followed by a new event called the Community Block Party that's scheduled for the 28th. And that's kind of a food, beverage, downtown focused event to bring the community back together. So we're quite busy over here in Sumner.
And Tara had one more item. The WashDOT's going to do a massive detour through Sumner, all northbound lanes, August 21st and 22nd. As far as we know, that's their plan. So if you're wanting to get anywhere fast in Sumner, do it on a different weekend. And that's all I've got.
Are you waiting for a deputy mayor here to talk?
Oh, yes. If you had, yes.
Okay. Ryan is awesome at his job. He pretty much tells everything exactly the way it is, and he does a good job at it. Elections are coming along nicely. We have 4 good candidates for the 2 contested council seats, and Barbara Botetto is running unopposed, as am I, for mayor. So I look forward to working with everybody. On a personal note, I am retiring from cutting hair on August 20th after 43 years. So I had a party planned for the 21st of August for all my clients, but I live on Valley Avenue, and with DOT messing up my party, I don't think that's going to happen. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, that's a lot of people in the community over the years that you've touched the head of.
I know.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
All right, Sumner, I see Meredith Neal and Councilmember Whitting and Jacobson.
Thanks. Well, since most of you heard from me last Thursday, I'll keep it pretty brief too, and just talk about some upcoming events. So National Night Out is tonight, so 6 to 8 p.m. in Pioneer Park. Is a gathering of community, getting a chance to get to know their neighbors. We have concerts in the park happening right now. That was something that started a little bit later this season once the governor's rules had changed. But if anybody is interested, Thursday nights, Pioneer Park is hopping. We have our Thursday night market, which has been doing fantastic. There are 5 to 6 food trucks each week right now, and a concert series on Thursday nights. A lot of really fun bands have been playing there. And then on Tuesdays at lunchtime is the kids concert series. And it is such a joy after it being so quiet last summer to hear, like 100 kids screaming in the park at noontime. It's just really wonderful to hear them all out there. We also have Food Truck Fridays going on. So every Friday, there are 2 food trucks that the Washington State Food Truck Association sets up that are at lunchtime at Pioneer Park. And so that was really an opportunity to expose different food trucks to our city and vice versa, to get some good diversity of food going on in our city. And then lastly, Meeker Days is coming up. So Meeker Days, which traditionally falls around Father's Day weekend in June, was rescheduled, and they've hustled everything together. And August 13th through 15th will be Meeker Days in downtown Puyallup. It will be not quite the same as normal Meeker Days, but it'll be pretty darn close. Looking at the street closures and everything, it'll spread through most of downtown. A lot of different great activities. All the music stages are booked up. So there'll be lots of music and activities. Pretty much everything at Meeker Days is free. Lots of, roaming artists and all sorts of other things. So definitely check that out, August 13th through 15th. And I would pass it over to Councilmember Jacobson and Councilmember Whitting if they have anything.
I'll pass to Councilmember Whitting. The big thing we're working on is we have a homeless task force, which is largely the work of Councilmember Whitting to begin on this. And what I like about the task force is it's got all opinions on it from the council. And sometimes it scares me on council right now in Puyallup. We're practically singing Kumbaya. But so I will let Ned talk about that. Well, he might have had to slip off. Anyway, so that's going on council, and we put the bond out for the police station for the fall, and today's election day for the primary, and good competition in District 2. So if anyone hasn't voted yet, please do so, especially if you're in Puyallup. So that's it for City of Puyallup.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Sumner or Puyallup on the line? All right, let's move on to County Council Member Hans Zeiger. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Good morning. And good to see all of you. Good to be at the annual meeting last week. That was a lot of fun. Good to see some people in person. So we have been continuing our work on the American Rescue Plan, setting aside federal dollars as other local governments are doing. Sumner and Puyallup are both working on that as well. We have set aside most of the funds that we have for this year. And I think the majority of the funds for next year are going to be devoted to housing and homelessness. But a lot of the funding that we've set aside this year is towards small businesses. And I'll just mention some of those items. So there's $5 million for an entrepreneurship program that Betty Capistani is putting together right now. And that will be focused on communities of color. And then there's $4 million for professional services as the Economic Development Department was pushing out money during the pandemic. They realized that one of the real needs of small businesses is being able to access professional services. And so we're making $4 million available for that. Another $4 million for innovation grants to help small businesses adapt in this changing economy. And then $500,000 for a central agricultural processing facility, which will really help a lot of our small farms and others who just need to have that kind of a resource to be able to do their business in an efficient way. And then speaking of broadband, a few moments ago, we did set aside $15 million of federal funds toward broadband for underserved areas of the county, and particularly areas out like the Key Peninsula and those areas that really struggle with that. So I expect that will be spent over a period of time, not all at once, but that's a significant commitment by the county council toward broadband. So that's what's going on with ARP, and continue to seek input from all of you as we do that work. My my largest concern right now, being a county council member, is what's going on with these new police laws that are now being implemented, and that's having a direct impact, of course, on the work of our sheriff's department. And I'm going to be very closely following how that is implemented. Of course, we know already of some of the impacts of that. We know about the murder that happened up at Coles just last week, and the fact that our sheriff's department was not able to respond because of this new law. And so I want to use the position that I have on the county council to highlight this issue, to draw attention to it, because I think it appears that we are going to need the legislature to make corrections to what they passed this last session. And as far as I'm concerned, this ought to be the top issue for small businesses across our state. It ought to be the top issue for our county council, and I hope that it'll be taken seriously, to really understand the impacts and make corrections as needed. So look, more to come on that, I'm sure. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I would love to meet with you to determine in what ways we can meet and message or help with any of those efforts.
Great, thank you.
All right, Senator Gildon. Thank you for being here.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here today. Apologies that I wasn't able to attend the event last week. I was, for those of you who don't know, I'm running a little slow in my office because I just lost my incredible assistant, Rachel Joe. She went and she took another position with my full blessing, and I'm really excited for her. But I think we've located a very good replacement, and we'll get them on board as soon as we can. I'd like to start off talking about this long-term care payroll tax, and I'm just going to do a plug for myself here because I guess that's what politicians do. For anyone, one of the biggest questions that I get is they say, Chris, where did this come from? How did this happen? And I didn't know anything about it, even though the bill was passed a couple of years ago. And so I would just encourage folks to sign up for our legislative updates. If you're not signed up for the legislative updates from either us or from your representatives, I certainly encourage you to do that because, for example, just this last session, we had, by my best count, we had 72 calls for either fee increases or new taxes. And so I certainly try to keep everyone up to date on what's going on, but maybe you need a couple of perspectives. So sign up for Representative Jacobson, Representative Chambers, their legislative updates. Promise we won't spam your inboxes. I try to send out no more than one item per week during session. So be sure and do that. Second, Councilmember Zeiger spoke about the police reform bills. And just last week, the 25th District legislators, we all signed on to a call for the governor to bring us into a special session so we can address this and we can answer some of the questions that law enforcement has. Even the bill's prime sponsor, Representative Jesse Johnson out of Federal Way, he acknowledges that there is some confusion amongst law enforcement. And so we certainly need to clarify the questions that are out there as well as implement some reforms so that the law is equally understood across all agencies of Washington State and equitably applied to all citizens. I definitely want to address that. But I do want to bring one thing to your attention that nobody's really talking about, because we did do police reform this last session, but we also did prison reform. And so this is going to be coming to a head because you're going to see the results of that very soon, and I want to put it on your radar. Legislature passed about a half a dozen bills that either reduce the penalty for crime or let prisoners out of prison early to serve their sentence in a community setting. So you haven't seen that on a large scale quite yet, but I want to put it on your radar because it's certainly going to affect people all across the state. We know that the governor released 1,016 prisoners about a year ago due to COVID concerns. And we just got the report from the Department of Corrections about a month ago that said 62% of those that he released have failed. They've either broken the terms of their release or committed new crimes and are awaiting sentencing for that. So, I'm just really concerned for the state of law and order in our state right now. And so that's something that I'm just watching very carefully. And I certainly hope that the governor will bring us into special session so that we can implement some reforms of the reform to make sure that law enforcement, like I said, understands how the law is to be implemented, and they're able to implement it equitably across the state. So that's it for me.
Good updates. I'm a little depressed, however. No, I love that we have who we have fighting these good fights for us in the 25th. Councilmember Jacobson or Representative Jacobson?
Yeah, with the representative hat on, I want to echo what people are saying about the police tactics and use of force bill 1054 and 1310. I've heard from our local law enforcement that they're very concerned about these in their trainings. They're not able to pursue suspects. They're having to have a higher standard of probable cause in order to pursue suspects. And then that means that they have to just walk away and let some of them, walk away, the suspects themselves. And they are concerned about mentally ill individuals, because if you call the police and there's someone that's mentally ill and they're not consenting to be detained, then there's nothing the police can do, and they are indeed required by the new laws to leave the scene. And so they're not working with the fire, as they have been before, because they have to leave the scene. Washington Association of Police and Sheriffs is very concerned, and it's just a big issue, and we really need to address it in the legislature. And it's also demoralizing for our police, because they're worried that they're going to act in good faith and try to do the right thing under this new kind of ambiguous law, and that they could even be decertified or even prosecuted. So it's very concerning. I would echo that as well. And I do want to say also congratulations to Kathy on your hair retirement. She, if anyone doesn't know, she cut my two boys, who are now in their 30s, their hair when they were young. So it's very nostalgic to hear that she's not going to be doing that anymore. So congratulations.
Great. All right, guys. Well, what a great morning. Great information. Michael, again, thank you so much for your great presentation. I'm sure you'll be hearing from this group, and we look forward to having you on August 26th. Dayna, thank you for reaching out and the work you're doing. Great to see all of our elected and public officials here today, and stakeholders in the community. Again, until next month.